some of you were around. Wayne was around. Wayne came to the third meeting ever at Home Depot when we met in the lumber aisle with a lumber cart and a piece of plywood on a push cart. And Wayne was there along with 2 other people. So Wayne's been around a long, long time, had some health issues, and because of that, he kind of dropped out for a while. And Wayne also, when I sent the big announcement out about Don Russell's picnic, I hadn't talked to Wayne in 6 or 8 months, and I get an email back and he says, I'd like to be there. I think I'll be walking by then. I just had a stroke. So I picked up the phone and said, what stroke? And he looks normal and sounds normal, but if all of a sudden he goes blank and loses his train of thought, okay, bear with him. He'll do that. Wayne is pleased to be back. You'll see him fairly regularly. Things are kind of evened out for him a little bit, so he can come back and be with us, with you. I'll be out there somewhere. But
on the road again.
Huh?
On the road again.
Yeah, pretty quick. It'd be on the road again. Way back when Wayne was part of the club, we did Kaleidoscopes. Wayne happened to, Ted and Wendy Riggs are turners, and Wayne kind of got into the turning a little bit, and he met up with a guy he'll tell you about who was one of the most renowned kaleidoscope makers in the world. He just passed away here about a year ago, and Wayne went down and studied under this fella for a while. So because of that, he did what I hope all of you will do. When you learn something new, you come in and share it with the rest of us. So the way this works is somebody will teach you to do something, you come in and teach the rest of us to do it. So this is kind of version 2, round 2 of Kaleidoscopes. It was incredibly popular back then. Everybody loved it, and we went through a little spurt where everybody made kaleidoscopes. They're not that hard to make, but the real critical part are the mirrors, and Wayne's going to show you how he does that and so on. I'd also like to tell you that Wayne has his email address up there, and that really is an email address, and you can tell the little health issues that he underwent
tumbling
there.
Over as you write.
Wayne is willing to do either one-on-one or one-on-two or do some group teaching. Doesn't have it figured out yet, hasn't thought past, yeah, I'd like to teach it. So after this class, if there's enough interest, contact Wayne and we'll work it out, either here or someplace else. So I'm welcoming Wayne back, and if you would join with me to welcome Wayne back in our midst, we're glad to have him.
Thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to come and share the little bit of knowledge I have of kaleidoscopes. I see we got a pretty good turnout, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming here, and I'd like to thank the company that's allowing the woodworking meeting to be held in their facility, and hopefully you'll gain something good out of this, and I can help spread or keep the kaleidoscope world alive. Right now, from what I understand, there's very few people in the world that know how to make kaleidoscopes, and there's not a lot of people that are doing it, and it's real close to possibly becoming an extinct art form. But you know, maybe this will be a nucleus for us to start somewhere and keep it going. Kaleidoscopes were invented in 1816 by a gentleman named Sir David Brewster. And Sir Brewster was studying the effects of light and how it worked and all that, and he put 3 mirrors together and discovered that if you look through it, it changes everything you see on the outside that you're looking at. I even read a statistic or a article that said, legend has it that in the ancient Egypt they would take highly polished stones and place them together on an angle, and then watch dancers as they danced along in front of the kaleidoscope, and were amazed at what it looked like and how it changed what they were doing. A kaleidoscope like I make, which is out of wood, does the same thing. This is the last scope that I ever saw that Jim Mendrup, well, he made it for me while we were training up me on how, or he was teaching me how to make them, and he took that and he showed me everything. I passed it around. You guys take a look at it. I passed this other one around. That one Jim made, this one I made, and this one was probably the second one. Second or third, I'll put this one over here. Kaleidoscope that I ever made, and I gave that one to my mother. She loaned it to me this weekend because she didn't know I got it, and I went in her house and took it. She's out of town, so I just went and got the kaleidoscope. I don't think she'll have me arrested. So the crux of a kaleidoscope really is based on one thing, and that's the mirrors. There are either 2 or 3 mirrors inside of a kaleidoscope that creates the image that you're looking at. You can't just take stuffed mirrors in there, though, and expect to get anything that's viewable and that you can understand, because they have to be constructed on specific angles. When a kaleidoscope is created, you wind up with a mirror like this, and this is the one I made the other night, and I don't have it completely done because you'll understand why in a minute. But I place on the bottom a piece of painted glass, flat black painted, and then with tape I pull the 2 mirror pieces up against it, create a triangle, and wrap the tape around it to just secure it. And then I take a protractor, which I probably didn't bring, and check the angle. I make 45-degree angle kaleidoscopes, 36-degree, and 30-degree. And where that's determined is this angle right here. This one is a 45-degree. I have a 36 somewhere. But what that does is, with a angle of 45 degrees, you're going to get a star in the inside that has 4 points. If it's a 36-degree angle, it's going to have 5 points. And if it's a 60-degree, it will have 6 points inside the scope. Now that's a 36, for another 45-degree scope, and that's a 30-degree. You see how narrow the difference is. As it gets narrower and the angle gets smaller this way, you have to have a smaller hole to look through. 45 degrees offers me the biggest hole I can get in there to look through the inside of the scope. So that's what I use. I can't see through a pinhole anymore, and I need somebody to go out there and hold it in the yard while I look at it and you rotate it, because it's still not big enough a hole. That's the main thing. This is a glass cutter that I use to cut the mirrors with. I cut my own mirror. I buy mirrors from, right now I got the latest I bought was from Art Glass Emporium in Winder, Georgia. And they're expensive. A 16 by 12 piece of first surface mirrors, like $35, $37 a piece. So you don't want to go around practicing on that stuff. We practice on something else. And initially, when I first started out, I used the first mirror I cut with a handheld Home Depot, where I got it, mirror cutter. The mirror wasn't that good because the angle needs to be very accurate, otherwise it distorts your image, and it was difficult to get accurately sized strips. These are 1 1/16 wide, and I shoot for plus or minus 10 thousandths width on that dimension. And this is 3/4 of an inch, and again I shoot for plus or minus 10 thousandths, because the worse the mirror angle gets, for either reason, these are too tall or that's too wide or narrow, it starts messing up your view. So I shoot for very accurate glass, or of course 10 thousandths. I'm a machinist, and 10 thousandths is not an accurate number, but in this 10 thousandths is, and with a handheld glass cutter, that's pretty close. But once the mirror's constructed, and I set it aside and don't monkey with it anymore, because you can distort it and you can get the thing twisted up and all that. These will never go in a kaleidoscope because they're just what I say, they're twisted up and real messed up. This is you just saw that those kaleidoscopes that went by are 2 mirrored. That's a 3rd mirror. You can look through it and get a good idea what the difference is between 2 mirror and 3 mirror. Jim Mendrip, who taught me how to make kaleidoscopes, said that most adults prefer a 2 mirror kaleidoscope and most children prefer a 3 mirror kaleidoscope. The reason for that is the 2 mirror has a more defined image, whereas that's got an awful lot of, it's busy whenever it comes to, and I tell you what else, do this, take one of I got the loose object cells that I brought to where you can see what they look like. Hold that in front of it as you look at it. Just be careful and don't cut yourself on any of that mirror. But the mirrors are the big secret to it. You can make a kaleidoscope out of anything.
I had a question about the dimensions that you talked about. The 16th of an inch, or that extra 16th of an inch, is that to allow for the thickness of that 3rd piece glass?
The extra 16th?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's just that's the numbers that whenever I got done practicing making a mirror and it came out 45 degrees wide, 45 degree angle, that was the length of the pieces. Okay, inch and a 16th on the mirrors and a 3/4 on the base. Now if you were making a 3 mirror system, this would have been a 3/4 inch wide piece of mirror stock instead of black glass. When I started making them, I just thought, well, you need to have everything made out of wood. Well, I was quickly corrected on that when a fellow handed me a kaleidoscope he'd made out of a beer bottle, and I was quite amazed that you could actually take this old empty beer bottle and put the mirrors in it and create a kaleidoscope. But he did it. And there's a fellow that has a website, bottlescopes.com. That's all he does is makes kaleidoscopes and sticks them in bottles. You supply the bottle or he'll supply the bottle. It can be a little bitty bottle or it can be a great big tall one. But he makes bottle scopes. So, and one fellow showed me one that he'd made out of a piece of PVC pipe. He got a set of mirrors in it, secured them, and he had his kaleidoscope created out of PVC pipe. You can even take a piece of aluminum foil and fold it into a triangle and look down it, and as long as you haven't crinkled up the aluminum foil too much, you'll get it's a bit of a kaleidoscope. Like I say, I make all mine out of wood. There's that one I think Ron's holding there, I made out of or that you just had. I made it out of a large piece of black walnut, but since I can't find black walnut and stuff like that in big chunks without going through a lot of problems, I just get the wood in standard, 3/4 width, 1 inch, 1 buys, and I get it from either Swanee Lumber in Swanee or the lumber store that's down there off of South Cobb Drive in Smyrna, I believe that is. And I laminate the pieces together. That's just 3 pieces of stock that I glued together, knocked the corners off of it so it wasn't so violent when I was trying to turn it, and that will be the barrel of the next scope, or the scope that I make out of this. I also glue these together, and although it's an excessive amount of wood, that's where this is going to come from. And the eyepiece that's sitting right here, I'm going to make that on the lathe, part it off, then I'm going to make this on what's left and part it off too. So this piece here contains both pieces. I brought this and I didn't have but one, and I brought that along so you can see that the inside is not just a round piece. There's 3 different holes that's drilled in the end of that. I start out after I turn it around and get it in chucked in the lathe. I drill an 1 3/4 inch diameter hole right at, I think it's 2 inches deep. Then, 2 inches deep. Then I drill from there an 1.5 inch diameter hole, another 1/2 inch deep, and then I drill it all the way through with an 1.25 inch drill. And that creates the steps that are there, because the object cell that I sent around, when it goes down in there, that's where it goes, is in the 1.5 inch drilled pocket. And I secure it with silicone sealant around it so it can't come out, and that's what keeps it in there and keeps you from having the thing fall back out. The barrel, you guys, I assume, all know how to do turning. I don't have to go into that. There's just one thing that I want to show you. This is something that's unique, that you can twist that, but it don't fall off. And Jim told me that he had spent hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to figure it out. And one day he was walking through Home Depot, and he, if I can get it apart, he saw that. And he said, plastic coated wire, that's what I need to make the kaleidoscope rotate. So he cuts a groove in the barrel right at the end. There's a groove cut inside here. Then he just wraps that wire around it, pushes it back on, and but you put the wire in here, slide that back down over it, and the wire pops up into that groove, and that retains this so it can't slide off, but you can still rotate it. So I'm going to pass this around, because I'm going to explain to you about how you secure your mirrors. Just take both of those.
What kind of jig do you use to cut the groove inside the...
I just use I have a grooving tool, an internal grooving tool, and I just reach down in there 1 inch deep. I have it marked on the grooving tool where I want to go to in depth, and I just push it up, put it up in the hole, and pull it back against the spinning object cell housing, and the groove. It cuts just a little bitty groove. You don't need a big one, just enough to make that wire snap into place. Now I have made them where there was no getting them apart ever. I don't know, that one's close. And some I've made, I didn't have the groove deep enough to amount to anything, and they come apart real easy. I had a lady, I sold a kaleidoscope to somewhere in Michigan or something, and she called and said, my kaleidoscope has exploded and come apart. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, my two kids were fighting over it. And one was pulling on one end and the other one was pulling on the other. And the thing came off, and I don't know why it won't stay on now. I said, get in the floor and look around for a green thing that looks like a wire, and you'll have your answer. So she called me back and said, yeah, okay, we found it under the sofa, and now we put the scope back together. It took them 3 of them to do it, but they got it back together. So once I've made the kaleidoscope, the mirror or the wood parts, the mirror has to live inside it. And you can't have the mirror flopping up and down or anything like that. It wants to stay in there securely, but it doesn't want to be in there so tight you have to hammer it in with a 9 ounce or 10 ounce hammer. Once I have the scope to this, or the mirror to this condition, we'll say that, use that one, I start wrapping duct tape around it. And I wrap it and I check it in the hole. If it's loose, I wrap it again. And I keep doing that until it just comfortably, with a little bit of snugness, slides all the way through. And I silicone around in the voids on each end. The reason for doing that is to keep dust from migrating into the mirrors later, and it also helps keep it secured for the long term. So that goo that you see in the end right there is the silicone. Somebody asked me, well, how do you get that?
Do you model the glass, or just square cut and then just...
Square cut it. Here, you take, I didn't know, did I send a piece of mirror? Now this will cut you big time. So don't be too friendly with it, because it'll cut you back. I was asked, how do I get that hole all the way through this piece of wood? And what I do is I rough turn it round like that. I then take it out of from between centers, rough turn it between centers, take it out, chuck it in the chuck, and I drill 1.25 inch diameter halfway through the hole. Then I turn it around, do the same thing again, screw it back up and drill 1.25 inch till they meet. There will be a little bit of run out or mismatch down in there, but it's not, I've never had a problem with it. And the reason I don't try to drill all the way through is because I've got my drill that I drill it with I have an extension that's capable of making it drill all 8 inches. But the first time I ever did it, I found out that it would start real nice and that's the drill I use. It would start real nice here, but when it got down here, it was over here to one side. And there's nothing worse than to find out that as you're cutting along, half your kaleidoscope comes away because the drill was off center. So I just drill it from both ends to keep it concentric at both ends. And that's a pretty wicked drill because it'll cut right on through. You can start to get it running, and then I just crank it till I've got no travel left in the tailstock. So that's how I get the hole through that. When I get all these pieces made, like the ones that are going around there, I'll slide it up on, I'll put this in the chuck, slide it up on there and do my final sanding or any on the end of the piece. I'll do a little bit of end work with it. And when I'm turning this, once I've got it, the hole drill through it, I got to get this down to final size. And I cheated. Like I say, I'm a machinist, so at work I made me these things here, the dummy centers, to go in there out of aluminum, so that once I put them in the lathe, once I have them, I can keep it long term rather than turn it down every time. But if a body were to want to make 1 or 2 scopes, the wood ones that you'd make for temporary would work fine. Do I right?
They look exactly like giant pin bushes.
Yeah. That's a rolling pin, I guess it could be. But the biggest thing that comes up once I've got the 2 end pieces made is, did that drill right? Did it drill oversized or did it drill on size? 99% of the time it drills too big. So, yes sir.
We got a question here on the object cell, where you get them, what it is, what the mystery fluid is. Tell us about the object cell.
Okay. These are called gem jars. They come from I got mine from FetPack. I don't know where FetPack is, but FetPack.com, FETPAK.com is where I get it. And that is a jewel jar. And they say they're offered in white or black. Well, the white or black is this. And when I use them, that's the first thing that gets trashed. And the object cell is created by selecting and I can't turn this over to where you can see it, or everybody will fall when they try to walk out. But I have all my jewel things here, and I just select what I want, put a few of each color in there. If you want to be more heavy red, put more red in it. I'll take a safety pin, a straight pin or two, and throw them in. I'll also take that little, it's just a little frilly thing, toss him in there too. I put enough in there to where there's, a substantial amount, but we're not crowded too tight, because you want the stuff to wiggle around and move. So once I've got everything in there, and I'm just going to let y'all trust I'm telling you the truth here, because I'm not going to do this. I take plain old mineral oil, get it down there at CVS, and the reason I use mineral oil is because that's what Jim used, and a friend of mine gave me 5 gallons. So I'm just,
You've got a little bit for one.
I've got some to do, and I'll stick with mineral oil till I use up my 5 gallons. And I, take the object cell there and I fill it with mineral oil till it is right at the top. And I use one of those turkey baster things to suck the mineral oil up in and start, once it gets close to the top, just a drop at a time till I can see that it's right at the top, because if the mineral oil runs over the side, go back to square one. Throw all that out, get another object cell and put your bead media in it, fill it up with oil, and once it's full, I take the thin CA glue and start on this little lid, and I pour it around this ledge right here. And when it gets 100% of the way around, and you'll know when you put it in there, because this will turn frosty where the super glue was at. And once it's turned fully frosty all the way around the inside of the lid, then without touching that, I slide it over the top and shove it back down. And once it's down on there, you can take and turn it about a half a turn, and the super glue will lock in place. Then I take them after I've done that and let them sit up and cure for a little while, and I turn them upside down on a piece of white paper. And the reason for that is if there's any leaking out, you'll see that oil stain as it spreads out on the paper. And that's what the mystery fluid and this thing is. But fatpack.com is where I got these on the internet, and they are in business. I called them the other day to see if they still had this stuff, and they do, because I've got enough to make 100 kaleidoscopes at home. So I won't be needing to get anything from them.
If that runs over the oil, is that because it won't glue then?
The glue will never stick.
And you can't wipe it off?
Well, you could throw it out and really soap and water wash and clean the thing. And I only mean that you have to start the process over. You can either use a new one or really clean this up so that the oil is off of it. It won't stick. No, and then you'll have a leaker, and you'll give somebody the kaleidoscope and they'll find that they won't be able to understand how come it's leaking oil on their kitchen table. Their car leaks, but they understand that, but a kaleidoscope doesn't do that. Yes, sir.
With this one that we're being passed around now, I see the silicone, does it go all the way down the shaft?
No, it just on each end.
Okay.
What I do is I use that big tube of silicone that's got a caulking compound, but it's silicone, and I'll point that nose down in the hole and kind of to the side and just keep pouring it in there until it pulls all the way back up to the top. Have to be very careful not to let any roll over in the mirror section, because if you do, it'll distort your image, or you'll see it way down in there in the one end. You'll see this glob hanging down, and that doesn't look real well in your image.
If that hole is so devilish to make, the tube,
Yes, sir.
what about taking your triangle or whatever you did and build it and then turn it round outside rather than trying to turn it round inside, and then you wouldn't have any wiggle and wobble.
Yeah, well, you could do that. You could fix your wood with the triangle on the inside, I would assume, and glue it all together. But it's not that difficult to get the hole through it. At least with the drill I have, I can poke that hole.
The alignment doesn't make that much difference. The alignment of the hole.
They'll stay pretty straight. It's just when I start on one end and try to drill 8 inches deep, the drill starts pulling to one side. The grain will affect how the drill acts as it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And by going 4 inches deep, I don't have a lot of run out at that point. And then I can just turn it around, true the thing back up, and drill 4 inches from the other end. And like I said, there will be a slight, small amount of mismatch, but I've never had a problem getting the mirror through it. Part of that is because if you were to actually scribe a circle around and touched all 3 of these points with the circle, it's a lot smaller than 1 1/4. But I use the 1 1/4 drill because Jim did, and also because there's this brand of drill, I don't know that there's a 1/16 or something on either side of it that I could, go smaller. So I just use the duct tape to around the mirror to. The duct tape does two things. It changes the size of the mirror circle, and it also supports the mirror and prevents it from distorting once you've done it, because you get the 45 degree or the 36 or whatever angle that you worked out, and you don't want it shifting any after it gets in there. And as the wood distorts from moisture and that sort of thing, that prevents, the duct tape helps keep it secure, and it holds it in perfect place. I've never had to take a kaleidoscope and cut the mirror out and redo it because it distorted or changed, and I blame that on using sufficient amounts of duct tape. Yes, sir.
And also when you're doing the end piece and you're putting the mineral oil, the reason you want it all the way to the top, drop by drop, is because you don't want any air bubbles.
I want to try to avoid, even though that's filled all the way to the top where I had it, when you turn it over, you can see that it's only about 3/4 full. So even though that's full, that isn't. And I just want to make sure I get as much oil in it as I can. There are actually two types or probably more than two. You can make this with a dry cell where you don't put anything in it. And as the object cell is rotated, the stuff, I think I sent it around already, the stuff inside there, your beads and all, will just fall. They'll crash, and you'll hear them crashing. It becomes a kind of a noisy scope too. But with the the mineral oil, what happens is it gracefully falls over rather than just fall over. And as Ron said, I had a stroke in there for a little while. I just would fall over. Kind of like this weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Well, this one did. And there it is. But you can see they just fall over, whereas that cascades and has a little bit more graceful. Let you look at that one now. That's the easiest way to describe the stuff inside is if light comes through it, you'll see it as a colored thing. If light doesn't, it's just a black shadow. Yes, sir.
That's what I was going to ask.
Okay. Yes, sir.
What else have you experimented with besides the jewels to make the object cell? Can you give us more ideas about this other stuff that would be good in kaleidoscopes?
Well, there's a lot of different kinds of kaleidoscopes, and that one is a see-through scope where the light has to pass through the scope. But you can also have those that light comes in from the side. And in that scope, you can put anything you want to in it, and you can see the object. It's not dependent on light passing through your bead or whatever. Light coming in from the side will also illuminate the object cell, and you can see it.
That's in the part that turns.
Right, that's in the part that turns. So if you were to go to the BrewsterSociety.com website and look there are hundreds of things that people put in kaleidoscopes. There's one that it's an angel that you can see in there, the literal angel that they put in it. And there's dozens of different types of eyepieces that you look through. Some have magnifiers in them and special optic things that you can look through to get a different image that's in there. They polarize the back of the object cell to cause different effects with the light. So this is just one of multitude, hundreds of ways. As I said earlier, I'm a machinist, and I've been a machinist for 45 years, and you could still write 10,000 books on what I don't know. So, kaleidoscopes, I don't know at the different combinations. Some people make special glass that they twist and.
I was going to say, I've seen stained glass wheels.
Yeah, there's the stained glass wheel on the outside. There's a tube that's got oil in it that as you rotate it, and the media will all fall down slowly through the tube. Then you turn it the other way, and media does it again. And one of the final things that's important about the wood part of the kaleidoscope is the end that you're looking through. If you notice, there's a piece of glass right in there that when you first look through it, and that is there to do two things. It's primarily keep dust and dirt from getting up in your scope, and it gives you, well, mainly it just protects it and gives it a finished look rather than just a hole sticking there. And I make 1-inch squares and just glue that on the bottom end of that eyepiece with the silicone glue, being careful not to get any in the hole or in the mirrors. And that makes for a scope that will not leak and won't absorb any trash that might otherwise get into it. So
You put that on the end of the triangle, and then you put your eyepiece with some glue on it or whatever. And
Actually-
put it down as tight as you can.
actually, how I do that is this is a purposely done demonstrator item.
Yes,
I
yes,
did this
yes.
just so
You could see
I
it
could
from the side.
demonstrate how I do that. I'll never admit that I dropped my roughing gouge and it blew it out of the lathe. But right in the bottom, the kaleidoscope will go right to that thing, right edge there. Then I drill a little bit deeper to create a cavity, put silicone sealant around the cavity and drop the glass into it and just kind of push it down to where it seats but doesn't squeeze out into the hole. And each kaleidoscope is sprayed 7 times with a instant dry clear high gloss lacquer finish, so that you finish it however you want. I mean, that's what I've done with those. I spray bunches and bunches of times, and it's that's the finish I get. It's been pretty durable and doesn't scratch up too bad. Then I make some kind of a little stand to put it on. These are drawer pulls, and went over to Home Depot and I thought, or the hardware store, and said that looks pretty cool, so I got those. And then I was going to have to make a bunch of scopes, and I found these on the internet. I bought 100 pairs because I made I think it was 17 or 18 kaleidoscopes at one time, and they wanted a stand, and I didn't want to pay $4 a set. So I found some on the internet for a couple dollars a set, but you had to buy 100, and I've used almost all of them up. So I was called one winter, is in November, and lady said, "You make the kaleidoscopes?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I have a customer that wants to buy 19 of them for a special banquet award thing that they did every year for their top performers in the company." So she said, "I need 19 of them quick." And I said, "Well, quick is quick, but I don't know that I can get 19 of them done." And she wanted them by December the 15th. And this was like almost Thanksgiving. And I said, "Well, we'll see what we can do." Well, I tore loose making 19 of these. It was 20 degrees outside. I had and I think it was 13 degrees inside the garage where I was at. And I'm out there, yeah, man. I mean, it was crazy, and I was, drilling. I had all these. They made them out of zebra wood. That's what this is, and in fact, this is one that came from that. And I was just working away, and I would close the garage door and drill these things, and I was using one of the less expensive Forstner bits. And it'd get dull. When it'd get dull, it'd start burning or heating things up. And there was smoke billowing everywhere. I did not have a respirator, so I would drill it till it got so smoky in there I couldn't breathe anymore, and open up the garage door. And the air would exchange, but the neighbors would see it. And I had several neighbors come over and say, "Are you on fire?" "No, I'm on Kaleidoscope." So what And one time I kept drilling. I thought, all I need is just a little more and I'll be all the way through. And I kept cranking and cranking. He quit drilling. And it actually set the wood on fire inside the scope. I snatched the tailstock out, and when it did, smoke and fire blew everywhere. I'm standing knee deep in chips, and now they're on fire. So needless to say, even though I didn't think I had a whole lot of motion left in me, I did. I could find some activity. But that's about, everything, that is everything I know about kaleidoscopes. As Ron had said earlier, I would be willing to teach, on a one-on-one or maybe a two-on-one class at my house. We'll have to set it up, or we could do it maybe down here or somewhere else. But my email address is there. I've kind of put this into a little handout here about how to make kaleidoscopes. I don't know that there's enough for everybody. I didn't expect this many people, but if you don't get one and would like one, email me and I'll send that to you in an email attachment back to you on your computer. So Ron, any questions that you got, please ask.
You said you're not using a porcelain bit. What kind of bit is it?
Let me just take it out and show you. That's a, let's see, what's the name of this thing? Bad Dog Drills. Mad Dog, Bad Dog or something. Yeah, Bad Dog Drill. And you can put that in a handheld drill and start a hole and get it a little ways down in it and then turn your drill and go around the corner. So I've never tried it, but that's what they say you can do. So I thank you all for coming out. Yes, sir.
Any other final questions?
When you look through there, it looks dark inside the kaleidoscope.
That's because of that black glass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what creates that black, looks kind of like a black background behind the image.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the black glass comes in. That's what its purpose is to create that black background.
Okay. Now, does it make a difference on the length of the kaleidoscope as far as, the objects on there? If you make it longer or shorter?
It's up to you. I have actually seen a pendant kaleidoscope, and it was about that long, and a lady was wearing it, and it was I attended one kaleidoscope convention in New Orleans back several years ago, and she had made a pendant scope. It was just a little kaleidoscope made out of brass, and it was less than an inch, about an inch long. So you can do that. And I also saw one there that a man made that was about half the length of this table. So of course it was mounted on this huge elaborate stand and all.
Yeah. It just seems like the length of the mirrors would make a little difference on how it reflected.
Well, it may make some difference, but what happens is the further away or the closer you get with the object cell to your eye is how well you see it. All the scopes are blurry to me because of the glasses and all. But people with normal vision, I think 8 inches is typically the focal length without aided vision, and you can it's a little harder to focus on the image the closer you get, or the further away probably.
Folks, what we should take away from this class is that Wayne will teach us how to do the basics, and then you guys use your own creativity and your own imagination and your own skill set and see what you can come out of it, kind of like we did with the Christmas ornaments. Where I taught you how to do some of the basic stuff, Don Russell taught you how to do it, and you took it and ran with it and created something where the sum of the parts is worth way more than just one part. So that's what we want to do. We have another question or two?
The eyepiece there, is that just a regular round piece of glass glued in there?
It's just
Square
glass.
It's a piece of square glass. I cut them. I got a sack full.
Easier to cut square than just round.
Yeah, that I've never attempted it, and I'm not going to try it on mirror stuff.
Round.
See, it's just a square piece, and I use it's a dust preventer, and I cut my glass. That's one thing I failed to mention is
Against that little thing.
I cut, there's a piece of glass right here. I cut the glass on this thing here, rather than y'all wondering why in the world is it sitting there. It's because this is what I used to cut the glass with. And got the glass wheel, or the cutter wheel in it, if I can see where it goes. And this thing's very accurate. It's got a scale right here. I set the bar there, and you know, it's if I can find the glass, I can't see. Well, I've knocked it out of adjustment, and I can't get it to score.
In there backwards.
It'll only go one way. There it is. And I just cut the glass, you know, to score it, and then it just falls off.
We had one more question here. Wayne.
Could you go over the dimensions on your mirrors again? I didn't get that.
All right, these mirrors are 1 1/16 wide, the mirror glass is. And the base is at 3/4. So you'll have two pieces 1 1/16 and one that's 3/4. Sir?
Yeah, I was noticing your cutter. Where did you get your cutter from?
All right, I got a cutter up at Art Glass Emporium. I paid $109, and that one of the things that I wanted to mention is to make one kaleidoscope or two, paying $109 for something like this is really cost ineffective. And for anybody that wants a set of mirrors, if you'll contact me, I'll work it out where we can, you know, come up with a way to get you a mirror. And even getting down to this, I haven't seen this at Home Depot in a while, but I just have 100 feet of it at home. So, and it's with the 5 gallons of mineral oil. I haven't seen the mineral oil or this in a couple years. So they're wandering around out there in the garage or somewhere. But I'll work it out to where we'll get you you know, anything that you need that you can't make, you know, at home without going into a huge expense on your own. I'll make mirrors and all. Yes, sir.
I was thinking that string trimmer line like for a weed whacker would be just about like that, and that stuff's really cheap.
Some of that bigger stuff would, yeah.
Yeah.
I recently bought, it's called aircraft wire from McMaster Car, and it was like 23 cents a foot. And I bought another 100-foot roll, and I can't find it either now. So, you know, there are a lot of benefits for having a stroke, but I hadn't figured any of them out yet.
Yes, go ahead.
Is Art Glass Emporium a local place?
It's up in Winder. In fact, I have his phone number, if I can remember where I put my phone.
It's in the garage.
It's in the garage with the mineral oil and the wire.
On that glass cutter, another thing you can do, because I cut a lot of glass, what you could do is you just take a piece of ply. I mean, if you want to just make some quick, but have the accuracy, just have that as a piece of plywood.
Yeah.
And then what you do is make yourself just a straight edge that you leave room for the glass to sneak underneath. So you know, just raise it up just a little bit, and you can put that glass, and then you can run just one of those cutters across it, and you can get really fairly accurate. You probably want to use a piece of hardwood for the top side so it stays relatively straight. But you can cut a lot of glass that way to get the squareness you need.
We finished up a little early. We got plenty of time here. Wayne will be available.
Oh, yeah.
For you guys to come up and look and talk to him. Go ahead, Don.
You know, I was gonna say, we're just do the same with the paper cutter. You know, we'll do that with the blade, except we leave the blade up and line it up.
Hey, you can do that. That sounds like a clever
There are a
idea.
million ways to do it.
Road from there.
Well, I know you got my number.
Yeah. Have potholes in it. And I couldn't find a big piece of walnut or any of these other things, particularly like the zebra wood and canary wood. I couldn't find big chunks. So I just